Jared True is next. And Mike, together is it? Sorry. Okay. Welcome
Yes,
along.
thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Jared True. I represent the New Zealand Racing Board. With me is Michael Weems from the New Zealand Racing Board. At the back we've got Neil and Norma Cubis, who own the bar. I just have a PowerPoint presentation, if we could flick it out, please.
Jared, I think that's been circulated to us too, isn't it? So we do have a copy.
Thank you. Just through to the next slide. So this is what the reason why we're here today is. It's a tenancy change that's changing this from a pub TAB through to a TAB board venue. The race and sports betting currently operates there. It's going to continue to operate there at a same sort of level. The floor plan is going to be pretty much the same. The area dedicated to racing, sports betting is going to stay pretty much exactly the same. The bar and bistro is going to stay the same. Opening hours are going to stay the same. The fit out will change slightly. We will have a new, moderner, cleaner, brighter feel in relation to the fit out. And importantly, the venue will come under the direct control of the New Zealand Racing Board, a statutory body. The way the venue operates at the moment is that, in fact, it's already operating very similar to our other TAB board venues. If you look at the TAB board venue, it's part of the Hamilton Workingmen's Club at 20 King Street in Frankton, or the one at 618 in Chirapa Road. It's very, very similar to that. So just through to the next slide. Council, of course, does have the ability to grant us a consent today if Council so wished, using Section 80 of the Local Government Act. It's not uncommon for Section 80 to be used in relation to gambling consents. There's been 2 prior TAB consents where Section 80 has been used in New Zealand. Both of those were at Manukau. And at page 40 of your agenda, I've detailed exactly what the situation was there. There's also been 12 prior Section 80 applications in relation to gaming machines, 8 of which of those have been granted. I've been involved in most of those applications, and in all of the applications that I've seen, the staff recommendation has been opposed, similar to what the application's here. You will, of course, need to state the reasons for making an inconsistent decision. Some of the reasons could be that the impact is minimal, given that race and sports betting is already there. Importantly, and why this makes this application unique, is that the venue is expressly identified as suitable to have another, more riskier form of gambling in the Class 4 policy. So under the Class 4 policy, this venue is singled out and expressly exempt, despite the fact it's been a gambling permitted area. So it is, although in another policy, an express allowance has been made for gambling to be at this venue. And of course, one of the benefits I see is it coming under the direct control of the statutory body. The main issue we've got, of course, is we're not in a gambling permitted area. We would be exempt if this was a Class 4 application. The staff report said that in 2004, Council made a decision to exclude Five Crossroads and Enderley due to the demographic. However, in fact, in 2004, Council had the ability to refuse consent and remove the gaming machines from that venue. What the Council did is they didn't remove the gaming machines from that venue. They made a policy that expressly allowed gambling to happen at that venue, expressly allowed that venue to keep its gaming machines, and in April 2004 expressly granted that venue consent. And it seems odd to me that Council's expressly allowed a riskier form of gambling by way of gaming machines, but now would be looking to seek to oppose the New Zealand Racing Board going as the statutory body. If we look at the number of presentations, we look at the people that go to the problem gambling services, the vast majority say they've got problems in relation to gaming machines. Over 65% say they're problems in relation to gaming machines. The risk in relation to race and sports betting is a lot less, with only 5% saying they've got an issue with race betting and only 2% saying they've got an issue with sports betting. Yes, we are within 50 metres of 2 residential zones. One residential lot is, however, used as a commercial hotel. We're on the corner of another lot, 227 Peach Grove Road, and the owner's written consent is in relation to that.
Okay, sorry, 3 minutes. But look, we do have your PowerPoint, Jared. Thanks. So we've got all the slides. So thank you for that. But I'll just go.
We certainly welcome questions.
Yes, so I'll see if there's any councillors have got any questions they'd like to ask. Councillor Mallett.
The split of the money from the gambling machines, not the TAB, how does that get allocated if it goes to a, is it called a board? A TAB board?
So if it becomes a TAB board venue, the game machines could stay as they are, but they're likely to transfer to the New Zealand Racing Board because it has its own Class 4 operator's licence. In respect of the game machine money, the way that the New Zealand Racing Board distributes the funds at the moment is it puts 80% through to support the racing industry and 20% through to amateur sport. And of course, the racing industry is a huge contributor, particularly in the Waikato, as far as employment, economic growth goes.
Currently, what happens to that gaming money? It all goes to the local gaming trusts, does it? It stays within our community.
Yeah, so the New Zealand Racing Board's Class 4 operator's licence is exactly the same as any other Class 4 operator's licence. So they have to give away money for authorised purposes, just like any other gaming trust does. And other gaming trusts have the ability to make money grants to racing. Some have a bias towards local rugby clubs, like the incumbent. The New Zealand Racing Board has a bias towards looking after the racing industry, given it the entertainment, the employment and the GDP growth that it provides.
You said 80% would go to the racing industry, if I'm using the words roughly. Currently, how much goes to the racing industry from the...
Yeah, I don't know exactly how much Grassroots Trust puts through to the racing industry, but typically, if we look at a typical gaming trust throughout New Zealand, it's probably between 5 and 8% of funds would go through to the racing industry.
So currently, is it a grassroots site, is it?
Yeah.
So currently, grassroots allocate that money, and I think they typically allocate it within the community that it comes from, I think.
Yeah, and a large portion currently goes to Waikato Rugby.
Okay, thank you.
I've got the Deputy Mayor, then Councillor Forsyth and Councillor Gallagher. So, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thanks. Could I just ask a question again around the gaming machines? And it's a bit similar to Councillor Mallett. And you've identified, I think, that Grassroots currently are the owners or the operators of the gaming machines. So if the application were successful, does that then trigger a new ownership relationship with the Grassroots poker machines? Do you automatically take those over, or does Grassroots have some occupancy lease that keeps them there for 12 months or 2 years or whatever? I don't quite understand.
Yeah, it would depend on the individual contract that's in place with the existing operator and their trust. The maximum term you can have for those, what we call venue agreements, is 3 years. Industry practice tends to be a 12-month situation, and some contracts, depending on the negotiation, have ability to change within a month-by-month basis. So if it were to remain with Grassroots, it would probably be for a reasonably short period before it was transferred to the New Zealand Racing Board, and comes under their control and their procedures.
Okay, Councillor Forsyth?
Thank you. I think that you've largely answered the question, but I just wanted to double check. So the I don't know whether it was the 20% or the 80% that you were talking about, which goes to the community or is administered by the racing board.
Yeah, so 100% of all the profits from
Yes.
the game machines, remember this is TAB application, not game machine application, but 100% of the game machine profits have to be used for what we call authorised purposes. And racing is one of those authorised purposes. Mm-hmm. And the New Zealand Racing Board has a policy of distributing 80% through to racing and 20% through to amateur sport.
Got that. And you were saying that the 20% is loaded more towards Waikato Rugby in this area.
No, the current incumbent puts a lot of money towards Waikato Rugby. But Michael, what sort of applications?
Yeah, what the Racing Board applies those funds to is to amateur sports. So we take a grant request from the communities, and then based on the merits, those funds are then distributed to amateur sport, mainly for the facilitation and the playing of the sport, and particularly for children's sport.
Okay, so you can't give us any more detail other than that? Administration of what? All sports? You've got an example of...
Certainly, any sport that has a national sporting organisation recognised by Sports New Zealand is eligible to apply. So as long as they're an incorporated society or a charitable purpose and their sport is recognised by Sports New Zealand with a national sporting organisation, they are welcome to apply for funds from the New Zealand Racing Board.
So do you have an example of the types of sports that have been successful?
The Rimbatuka Inline Hockey Club, the Blockhouse Bay Soccer Club. We've, in the last Since we had our licence granted in 2011, and since then about $5 million has been allocated to about 42 different sporting codes and clubs around the country.
So what about from a Waikato or a Hamilton perspective?
Certainly a lot has gone through to the Hamilton area. Our largest grant ever was to $350,000 to Te Awamutu for the grandstand facility that was built there. And we have also given a lot of other money to the Waikato. I haven't got the figures here, but I can provide them if you wish.
Te Awamutu grant would have been on the basis that we have a board venue in Te Awamutu with game machines, and the focus being on making local grants from local.
Correct.
And what grandstand are you talking about? Sorry.
So this is a facility that was built there it's an indoor facility for multiple sports activities.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Councillor Gallagher?
So basically, at the moment, perhaps staff, when we debate this, will clarify this. These machines roughly put 100% of their takings into local amateur sport, is that?
Well, it's up to the particular trust at the time.
Yeah, so I suppose...
Neil and Norma
I'm
could-
just, sorry, but I don't know whether these guys can
All right,
answer for
okay.
grassroots, if you know what I mean, because it's grassroots, is it, that's got the...
So-
So I wouldn't, so could I suggest that it's not appropriate for you to tell us what grassroots does, because you don't, the grassroots aren't here.
I'll flag the
okay?
question.
So
You'll just confirm for me that under the TAB watch, 80% of the takings of your machines on any premises goes to racing, to the TAB. Okay, thank you.
So, an operator has the ability to choose which particular trust they go with. So Neil and Norma at the moment could elect to go with Grassroots Trust, which gives a lot of money towards Waikato Rugby. They could also elect to go with First Sovereign, that also is a non-New Zealand Racing Board trust that gives a lot of money to racing. So an operator can choose any gaming trust to go to, and they tend to publicise where they make priority grants in particular areas. We have some trusts that give money to earthquake appeals, some to air rescue.
But once
All right.
the current arrangement finishes within 12 months, 3 years, then the TAB, as its TAB site, 80%. Once the arrangements finish, 12 months, 3 years, as a TAB site, the usual rule of thumb is 80% to the race.
That's New Zealand Racing Board's
Thank you.
I've got Councillor Pascoe, then Councillor King.
Yes, my question's a little different. It is around the Section 80 examples. You've given us two on page 40 in Manukau. Both of those appear from the notes to be relocations where the premises on which the activities were conducted were relocated to another, which would have required some sort of reconsent anyway.
A new consent.
Yeah, a new consent. Have you got any example? I mean, this isn't a relocation, is it? It's
Well,
business as usual at the same address with a different proprietor.
Yeah, well, but the previous applications are similar in that you need a consent to establish a new board venue, and that's what we're doing, establishing
Yeah.
a new board venue. It just happens to be at a site where there's already racing sports betting.
But there may well have been other reasons for a relocation that these councils would have considered a Section 80 exemption
Yeah,
for.
they're not, I've just given you every prior example that's been through New Zealand. So I made an Official Information Act request with every
Yep,
council
okay.
for every one they've ever had, and these are it.
Okay. So
we haven't had a similar one where it's been a pub TAB and we've looked to change it to.
Okay, so that
board
was
venue.
my next question.
Yeah.
We haven't had one, there hasn't been a Section 80
The
example
Tracks.
similar to this one?
Venue in Wellington, that was a similar situation where that occurred, but that was in accordance with policy there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor King.
You made a reference to a similarity between Te Rapa and King Street. Could you go over that again, please?
Yeah, so if we could put up my presentation again, I'll show you the photos of what those two venues look like.
What page is that on your PowerPoint, Jared, and we can look at it here?
Slide 14, page 7.
Right.
So slide 14 shows what the TAB board venue looks like at 20 King Street in Hamilton. At the top there, and at the bottom is what our board venue looks like at 618 Te Rapa Road. And over the page 8, slide 15, is what the current venue looks like inside. So both venues are very, very similar as far as having the flat screens, the betting services that are available, a TAB counter. In fact, you could walk into, just like you can walk into the Eastside Tavern, you can walk into this venue and actually already think it would be a board venue. The only reason it's not is that the tenant's not the New Zealand Racing.
Okay. That's it, Councillor?
You referred to, was it pokies as being a more risky
Yeah.
than, so what part of your proposal could you be getting rid of the pokies?
A part of the proposal
What
is not to remove the proposal, is again, it's application under the TAB board venue policy. The reason why I raised that is that there was concerns about gambling being in this area. The council addressed that in 2004 and expressly allowed the most dangerous and risky form of gambling to be allowed. It seems odd to me that then you prohibit a statutory body conducting the race and sports betting, which is already running here.
So is the King Street venue and the Chirapa venue, do they have pokie machines?
The King Street premises, the board venue part of that is the back of the Hamilton Workingmen's Clubs. So that back part doesn't have game machines. So our board venue does not, but obviously in the same building, through the other end, the Hamilton Workingmen's Club does have game machines. The venue at Chirapa Road does have game machines.
Does or?
Does.
Does, okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Did you have another question, Councillor Forsyth, or you're?
No, I did.
No?
Thank you,
Yep.
sorry. Look, forgive me if I don't get it, but if everything's going to be pretty much the same as you've outlined on one of these slides, why do you want to go to take over?
Everything's going to be pretty much the same. If we become the tenant, that triggers the provisions in the Racing Act that says we need a consent because we can become a board venue, thus why the need to come today. Because once we become a tenant, we need a formal consent, whereas currently we don't. That's the trigger.
So what happens if your application is declined, then what will happen?
The bar will just carry on as is. So race and sports betting will carry on, game machine gambling will carry on.
Okay, I mean, that's fine, I just still don't get why, I don't
It's just a trigger point that
you're applying.
I think the question is more, why do you want, if everything's going to stay the same, why does the TAB want to own and manage the site as opposed to the current operators if everything's going to stay the same? It's not the process, it's why do you want to do it?
Under our TAB retail policy, we do have a number of board venues, about 85 around the country, and that's, to be a board venue, the racing board has to lease or own the premises.
Right.
All the rest of our sites are either pub tabs or club tabs. The issue with a pub tab, of course, is that we're there as a guest, and if anything happened to the pub in terms of the publican decided to change it from a sports bar to, say, a gastro-type pub, or the publican decided to sell up and move, or a new publican came in and didn't want a TAB offering, our tenure at that site is basically could go. The advantage of having been a board venue is that because we are the leaseholder, we then have tenure and we have the ability to run it ourselves. So certain sites around the country where we believe that the TAB offering needs to meet our customer needs, and if we lost that site, we'd have difficulty in servicing that area. We look to the opportunities to make those TAB board venues, so we basically have tenure over the site rather than our presence is there as a guest or the whim of the incumbent publican.
Okay, so, yeah.
Thank you, that makes that clear. So these are my words. So in effect, you're trying to get in through the back door, because let's say, as you said, you pointed out, if the purpose changes from an existing TAB type venue to just a normal pub, then you wouldn't have the right, because of our existing policy, to have a venue in that particular area. That's the way I understand it.
It's just formalising what already exists, yeah.
Yeah, but if it changes, then you don't have the ability to be in that area because of our policy, correct?
As a board venue.
Yeah, as a board
Yes.
venue.
Okay.
I
thank you.
think just to
But
get some...
we could set up another pub TAB next door.
But not in that spot.
Yeah.
And not in that spot.
No, we could set up a pub TAB next door.
So why don't
Because
you do it?
when we set up a pub TAB, like what's currently there,
Yeah.
we don't need council consent,
Okay, so why don't you do that?
because it's already there.
It's already there. Okay. So there is the ability for you to do something in the future if another opportunity arises.
but not as a board venue.
Yeah, so Margaret, I know the questions you're asking and you can direct them to staff. Just on that line of questions, do you have to go through the same process to obtain a licence to operate if you were going to a greenfield site in that area? You'd still have to be asking us to go away from the policy. Yeah.
We would have to go through the same process if we were opening a board venue.
Yes.
There's no process if it was a pub TAB
No,
or a
no, I
club
got that.
TAB or a self-service.
Yeah,
tenant.
I'm not talking about a board venue. The process is the same, yes, as you're doing today, as if you went and found a location and wanted to establish it, Greenfields.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I get that. Okay, all right. Any other questions on this? No. Hey, look, thank you very much for coming along and for taking the time to answer our questions. It's been very helpful. Okay, thank you.